My computer is moving really slow.
Okay.
Hey,
good morning.
Good morning.
I'm gonna log off. My computer's moving really slow.
Yeah, everything's set up. Your recording, is it live yet?
No, that's one thing I hadn't set up.
Okay.
I hope you feel better, Q.
Alrighty, I'll see y'all later.
Okay.
All right. Well, I can do the live.
Okay, thank you.
The local news should give me enough time to get this file set up. Okay. Stream is starting. Okay. Get my A off. Do a little something. All right. So we are now live. And good morning to each and every one of you that are watching on our Facebook Live. It's your boy Kato flying solo today. Beatles a little under the weather, so we definitely want to keep her lifted up in prayer for a speedy recovery, but we're still going to do our show today. We have Mrs. Emma Agnew, the president of the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP. Always a pleasure to have such a strong community leader on the program. So she's going to keep us abreast of all that's going on. So we'll be starting in about 30 seconds. And shout out to my dog G in the background.
That's one thing about Zooming from home. You can't always get rid of all the background noise.
Yeah. She actually caught me just in time because I was actually just getting up and getting ready to get started on my day.
Yeah.
But here we go.
Okay.
Wait for this intro to finish airing. KLK 102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Monday. It's the first Monday of the month, May 3rd, 2021. This is Community Conversations. Here to Wonder is here with you live via Zoom. I'm filling in for Kabila, who is a little under the weather, so we definitely want to keep her lifted up in prayer for a quick and speedy recovery. Of course, as I mentioned, this is the first Wednesday of the month, so you know what that means. It is time for our monthly segment with the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP, and we have joined us today Mrs. Emma Agnew, who is the president of the Craighead County chapter. It's always a pleasure to have Mrs. Agnew on, so we're not going to waste any time. So, Mrs. Agnew, how are you doing today, and what is the latest news?
Yeah, I'm doing fabulous, Leganzi, and thank you. I am glad to be here, and to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in for NAACP Monday. So this, Leganzi, I thought this morning we would talk a little bit about police reform and criminal justice. There is a lot going on at the federal as well as the state level. And a lot of it will affect us at the local level. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that. You know, back last year, after George Floyd was shot, there was a lot of concern about policing in America. And so Governor Hutchinson appointed a task force to look into policing in Arkansas. And so their report is out. It has actually been sent to the House Judiciary Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee, forget which one. But anyway, there was no movement on it. It was sent last year. There's no movement. There was no movement on it this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the recommendations that they have made that will affect us. And also the House Bill 7120 at the federal level has actually passed the House, but that is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. And also the ACLU has put out a paper talking about smart justice. And this is a national platform that they're looking to start, and they're asking communities all over the country. So those are the three main items that I thought we tried to cover today. And so if you want me to start, or if you want to
Yeah,
start.
we'll just go down the list. Looks like you got an action-packed series of topics.
Yeah.
So let's start with the task force, because obviously this is in Arkansas. And I actually remember Gina Gomez.
Right.
I was on that committee because she actually I had some conversations with her on. She asked for my input of things that I thought were important for the task force to consider. So, what were some of the recommendations that they ultimately went into the report?
Yeah, so she actually, asked me too, and asked me if I would post it on my social media. And I did, and asked people, to respond with things that they thought should be in their recommendation. So I hope some of you took the opportunity to do that, because they were looking for input. But the recommendations that they made, and I'm only going to read the ones, and I'm looking at a summary, because the report is like 180 pages long, and I'm looking at a summary of the recommendations, and I'm only going to read the ones that will affect us, because some of these are don't apply to Jonesboro. But anyway, so they're talking about enhanced accountability for excessive force, dishonesty, or deceit. So they adding two components to this area. So currently, the officers, these are concerns for the report for accountability: and officers' failure to meet the minimum qualifications for employment or appointments as a law enforcement officer, and officers' violation of state or federal law, and officers' violation of the law enforcement agency's regulations, and an officer's resignation while subject of an internal investigation. So that's what's in there now. So the task force is proposing to add, through legislation, an officer's use of excessive force and an officer's dishonesty or deceit. And so these are reasons that an officer could be terminated. And then they want to strengthen oversight, structure, and organization in new law enforcement agencies. Uh, the legislation would give access to require new law enforcement agencies to have a full-time police chief. Well, that one doesn't apply to us. I said I wasn't going to read it, but anyway. And then there are some recommendations that the governor could implement without, recommendations that the governor could implement without legislation. And some of these are really good, and I think we need to be encouraging him to go ahead and implement some of these. Increase mandatory annual bias training from 2 hours to 4 hours. Could probably be increased more than that. Develop programs in cooperation with community leaders, faith-based organizations, and nonprofits to build trust between communities and law enforcement officers. Maintain and expand awareness of the crisis stabilization units. Incorporate de-escalation and crisis intervention training into minimum training standards. Support a strong bilingual know your rights and what to do when you are pulled over campaign. And encourage law enforcement agencies to participate in the National Use of Force Data Collection Program, which offers law enforcement agencies and communities a more accurate picture of the trends and the actual number of incidents in which excessive or lethal force is used. So that's a summary of the recommendations that the task force recommended after doing their research on what was in place now and what's going on around and throughout Arkansas. And so, as I said, some of these that can be done without legislation, I think are really good. And I think at the state level, we need to be encouraging Governor Hutchinson to go ahead and put some of these actions into place.
So with the current political climate, in light of everything that has been going on in the legislature, what do you think the odds are that any of this could potentially pass?
I think there's a good chance that it could pass. I really do. These recommendations from the that have been recommended to the governor to just implement, I think there's a more than good chance that he will implement some of those if we put pressure on it. He's busy, and it may or may not be at the top of his priority list. So I think he's going to have a constant reminder on how we go about doing that.
And I think it is important, you mentioned, to apply pressure. Throughout the session, several groups, both progressive groups and conservative groups, were constantly pressuring the governor to go one way or the other. And of course, there were some victories. There were also some defeats as well. Mm-hmm. But just a personal observation, I think anything that revolves police reform is, I think, runs into a lot of potential resistance, because you have an attitude, not just among police officers themselves, but some in the broader community, that police officers are infallible and are incapable of making mistakes. And police officers are people too. People make mistakes in our profession. So I think taking a look at policies and procedures and making positive changes is so important for us to move forward. We are speaking with Mrs. Agnew of the Craighead County NAACP chapter of the NAACP. Let's go to our Facebook shout outs. Shout out to Gwen Henderson and Paul Vale. Angela Artist says, good morning. I missed you too. Paul Vale raises his hand. Derek Copeland says, good morning, KLEK, and good morning, Emma. Also, shout out to Hannah Stanberry and Brittany Alexandria. So, as the Craighead chapter of the NAACP had a chance to discuss these recommendations, and if not, is that forthcoming?
That's forthcoming. We have not had an opportunity to discuss them. We actually met with the Arkansas ACLU last month, and this is what we'd ask them to speak on. And so they actually sent these to us. And so we have not had a chance to discuss them, but we will. We will also, I will also discuss them with our state president and see if he's willing to put this on the agenda. And I'm sure he will. He's very agreeable. Put it on the agenda for a state meeting. I think efforts, since this is a state document, it should be coordinated at the state level, if at all possible. But I do think there should be a strategy to get Governor Hutchinson to implement some of these, especially the one about developing programs in cooperation with community leaders, faith-based organizations, and nonprofits to build trust between communities and law enforcement officers. We actually met with Chief Elliott, was it last week before last, not too long ago. And we actually discussed this. And of course, he's all for it. And so even if nothing is done at the state level, we had already planned on coming up with some strategies and programs to implement this at the local level. And also this to include de-escalation and crisis intervention in minimum training standards. So I'm not sure what the local minimum standards are, but certainly this should be, in everybody's training is how to de-escalate and how to intervene in a crisis, because there are some steps and some trainings that can be taken into account. So I think those are two no-brainers that can be done. I really can't imagine why anyone would object to those two things. But you never know what people will object to until you put it out there. But I do think there's some no-brainers that we can work with the governor on. It will be a struggle to get legislation passed. It wasn't even addressed in this session with all the bills that they introduced and passed. This wasn't one of them, unfortunately. So hopefully next session, we can encourage somebody to bring this up to the House Judiciary Committee.
Of course, you mentioned earlier about the ACLU, and you had also mentioned at the beginning of the show that you all are working with them on the Smart Justice platform. So what is the Smart Justice platform, and how does that tie into what we just discussed?
Okay, well, the Smart Justice Plan is just basically the ACLU conducted a report over several years and found out some information or documented some information, which I'm sure they already knew because, we knew a lot of it without the research, but it was documented. And what they have done is put together a blueprint that they feel like communities and activists across the country can use. And so one of the things they found was, and this is mind-blowing, that between 1985 and 2017, the cost for corrections increased by 445% in the state of Arkansas. So Arkansas is spending $433 million of its general fund on corrections. And this was in 2017. I imagine it's gone up That was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So I imagine it's even gone up now. And another thing they talk about is the cash bail system. And I will say that the NAACP at the state level that we are working on something with the cash bail system. But a lot of this is just common sense reform, um, holding people pre-trial, on simple misdemeanors. They're in jail and they haven't even been convicted of a crime. And also taking people's license for technical things, taking your license or suspending your license, for failure to pay a fine or failure to appear or whatever. And then you can't even go to work. So you end up losing your job. So it's like we are criminalizing people for being poor, for not being able to pay fine on top of fine on top of fine. So $80 ticket ends up being $800. And so you end up being locked up. They issue a warrant for your arrest. You end up being locked up for a parking ticket that exploded. So that's and also it says that Arkansas has the fastest growing prison population in the country. And so I do think there is a lot to be done there. They want to expand mental health and addiction treatment, decriminalizing crimes like marijuana possession and loitering. And then, as I said, eliminating the cash bail system and significantly reduce the rates of pretrial detention in the practice of jailing people or suspending their driver's license for fail to pay court fines and fees. So there are a number of recommendations, but that's basically the blueprint. And they are recommending, of course, as I said, that communities across the country work on implementing some of these issues, again, some of these issues down there.
All right, let's go back to our Facebook comments. We're speaking with Mrs. Emma Agnew of the Craighead chapter of the NAACP. Derek Coleman says, "Good morning, Madam President." And Shirley Legrone is watching. Appreciate you for checking in. Of course, if we have a question for Mrs. Agnew, please post them in the comments and we will happily post them as well. We're going to get ready to go into our first break, but when we come back, we will resume the conversation for those on the radio, but the conversation does continue for those on Facebook, so don't go anywhere. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. All right, so while we're live here on Facebook, what are some upcoming events that the chapter is having on the local level? You had the most recent Spring Fest, which I believe y'all may have talked about last go around, which was very successful.
Yeah, we did that. Right now, we don't really have anything planned. I think we will. We have our executive committee meeting tonight. So on the first Monday night, we have our meetings. And then on the first Monday morning, I'm on KLEK. So I haven't gotten anything approved by the executive committee. But I do have a couple of events, suggestions, a partnership request, or whatever you call them, that I'm going to present to the executive committee. So maybe next month we'll be able to talk about those. But right now, the only thing that we have approved that we're moving forward on is, of course, our Freedom Fund Gala. And we're all excited. We're going to do that in person again this year, unless something happens with this virus or the variant. We do plan to be in person, and it will be held at the Glass Factory on West Huntington. So we're excited about that, and we're working on that and planning for that.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I know the first day, it took me a while to finally get some food because all kinds of technical issues kept coming up.
Yeah, somebody Somebody told, I didn't realize that somebody was talking about that. But anyway, so maybe we won't have so many technical issues this time. But yeah, but at least you got food. I never
Yeah,
got a plate.
it just took a while.
Yeah, I never got a
But
plate.
better late.
They totally skipped me, and I was at the table with my family, and I told them, I said, I can't believe y'all didn't tell them to give me a plate, to leave me a plate.
How you gonna skip the president?
I know, right? And I bought a table and sit them at my table, and they didn't even make sure I got a plate.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, I probably didn't eat anything anyway.
I know it's gonna be some good food. And I'll make sure to get a plate this time.
I will too together. I will make sure I get a plate this time. I'm going to tell somebody at the table where I'm sitting to make sure if I'm not there to give me a plate, because I like you was running around. That was our first event, and you know that there were errors and things that didn't go as planned, and a lot of them only we knew about, and some of them everybody knew about, but we learned a lot. And of course, in the second year, we did it virtually because of the
I remember
pandemic.
I was there.
Yeah, you running around then too.
Yeah, and I did get food that go around.
We
Of course, it
worked
was
it
a lot
that
less
night.
people.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, everybody was responsible for getting their own food that night.
All right, well, stand by. We're getting ready to go back online.
Okay.
In just a couple seconds. And we're back on Community Conversations on KLK 102.5 FM with our guest, Ms. Emma Agnew, President of the Craighead County Chapter of the NAACP. We got a new Facebook shout out to Patty Harbison IV. Appreciate you for checking in on our Facebook Live feed. Now, at the top of the hour, we talked about the Derek Chauvin trial, and one of the things that has been birthed to that is Bill 7120. I believe it's been proposed in the U.S. House, which is basically the George Floyd U.S. law, which would help to prevent incidents like that from happening in the future. So what is currently going on with that?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it has passed the House.
Okay.
But it is in the Senate Judiciary Committee. It has not passed the Senate as of yet. But as you say, this bill was introduced last year, after the George Floyd shooting. And I think that shooting, as I like to say,
that shooting, Chauvin had killed him by putting his knee on his neck for over 9 minutes.
Yeah, and the world saw it. And so I think everybody was enraged. I mean, I've heard several people say, and including myself, as I watched that, tears just rolled down my cheek. It just hurt. It was so hurtful for it to happen the way he did. And then, of course, at the trial, they tried to blame it on him, which is generally what happens. You get into victim shaming. But Chauvin was convicted of murder on all 3 counts. And so he's in jail. And I think we have to realize that not a whole lot has changed until the change comes from the federal, state, and local level. That very same thing could happen again. That's why this state legislation is so important. Building relationships with the police at the local level is so important. It's a lot harder to kill somebody that you know by first name. If you know this kid by first name because of meeting him at community events through the neighborhood or whatever, and you see him and you know who he is, he's less likely to be hurt.
I do have to add, though, on a positive basis, because I believe that Chauvin and George Floyd did know each other, but their previous interactions weren't positive. I think
Yeah.
there may have been like I think maybe like at a entertainment event or something that they may have crossed paths in. I don't remember the full story, but I think it's important not just for the officers to know, but know with positive interactions.
Right.
So again, that you don't go into an encounter with negative bias already, or like a score to settle.
Yeah. I remember a few years back, I think Reginald Prunty sponsored, along with the NAACP, I believe, sponsored a basketball game, the police against neighborhood youth, and that was a fun event. So I think more events like that. And there was a cookout, and they played ball, and it was fun. It was fun to watch. It was, but anyway, I think more events like that are good. But anyway, this George Floyd Justice in Policing Act addresses a wide range of policies and issues regarding police practices and accountability. It includes a measure to increase accountability for law enforcement misconduct, to enhance transparency and data collection, and to eliminate discriminatory policing practices. The bill facilitates federal enforcement and constitutional violations, such as excessive use of force by state and local law enforcement, among other things. It also lowers the criminal intent standard from willful to knowing or reckless to convict a law enforcement officer for misconduct in a federal prosecution. It limits qualified immunity as a defense to liability in a private civil action against a law enforcement officer. It authorizes the Department of Justice, and I think this is important, to issue subpoenas and investigations of police departments for pattern of practice of discrimination. And as we know, this is what happened with the Minneapolis police, that the Department of Justice did issue a subpoena and decided that it was warranted for them to investigate the whole department. And so that's what's going on with them now. So, and then it also creates a national registry where police misconduct can be compiled. Right now, there is no registry, so bad police officers can go from state to state, city to city, or whatever, and continue to be police officers. So this bill would increase, provide a national database so that police departments can make sure that they're hiring good police officers. So there would be a framework to prohibit racial profiling at the federal, state, and local level. And a new law enforcement officer and agency, it will establish new requirements, including reporting data on use of force incidents and obtain training on implicit bias and racial profiling. So that's kind of a broad overview of what this bill would do. There is a lot in there. And as I say, a lot of that, of course, is for the federal and state and local government. So a lot of this would trickle down to Jonesboro, to the region. So we'll see what happens with that. And once again, it's really in our interest to let our elected officials know how we feel, to email, text, write, call, or whatever to let them know, how we feel about the um, the Justice and Policing Act.
And I think that's very important. That last part you mentioned, that about contacting, emailing elected officials, not just on this issue, but on any issue as well. So is the local chapter of the NAACP working on an effort to help coordinate and educate people on how they can contact their representatives to get them more active and engaged in the political process?
We have only done that so far on specific issues. For instance, when the Stand Your Ground bill was there, we told people who they needed to contact and how they needed to contact them. But of course, we've been in a pandemic and a quarantine mode for a year now, so there hadn't been much public stuff generated. And a lot of people just don't Zoom. But we are going to gear up and do some educational sessions. And we talked with Chief Elliott about that also. The police are willing to partner with us on some of these things. We will request them to partner with us, but we will also hold meetings to educate people on how you go about getting in touch with your legislatures and staying in touch with them, and how you determine and find out what's going on, what legislation is being worked on, and that kind of thing. So yeah, so all of that will be coming hopefully by fall. We'll feel comfortable. Most folk will have been vaccinated. And by the way, if you haven't been vaccinated, get your vaccination. If you
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of that, since we're talking about vaccination, is the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP partnering with any of the local medical providers to host a vaccination clinic?
We have been asked to partner, and as I say, the executive committee hadn't approved it yet, but we have been asked to partner with a local pharmacy to do the vaccines. So I don't anticipate anybody disagreeing with doing that. So, we hopefully will have something coming up soon where we partner to provide vaccinations. So, we want everybody to be vaccinated so we can feel comfortable and confident in getting back together again. So I, for one, am ready to do that.
Absolutely. Just having that peace of mind. I mean, you still have to be cautious,
Mm-hmm.
You can still get COVID, but just being vaccinated, knowing that, that anxiety of getting really, really sick or potentially dying, having that taken off the table is just such a sigh of relief. So yes, people, get that vaccine. Yes, you may get COVID from it, but if you get it, it'll just be like if you got a cold or the flu. You won't have to worry about getting extremely sick or dying from it. So go get that. You can pretty much go anywhere now. It's wide open. 16 and older. Just go to your favorite medical facility, favorite hospital, your doctor. Everybody's got it now. So go get that.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't not have our interview and not talk about voter registration and education, because it is the most important thing, because none of this other stuff really matters if we don't get out and vote.
Yes, we must register to vote. And I will say this, there is no shame in not being registered to vote. The shame comes when you you're not registered and you just refuse to get registered. So don't feel ashamed about registering to vote or walking up to a table and saying, I'd like to register to vote. We welcome that. We love you. We appreciate that. if you have any questions about how to do that. There are generally voter registration forums going on. I know Derek Coleman is listening. He has been hosting not only voter registration forums, but he'll even feed you. I mean, a full meal. So
yeah. Special shout out to Derek. Derek has really worked hard in the
yeah,
community. He is definitely one of those who puts his money where his mouth is. He doesn't just
right.
talk to talk.
Yeah.
He walks the walk.
Yeah, he walks the walk for sure.
He's always
Yeah.
asking me for advice, and I'm happy to give it to him.
Yeah.
But that's what we need. We need more people like that. You know,
yeah,
go out
absolutely.
to your neighborhood, talk to your neighbors.
Yeah,
You know,
encourage folk to vote. So you can go to the courthouse, the county courthouse downtown, and register, or you can participate in some of these events that are going on, and I'm sure they will be increasing as the year goes on. But please, please, please register to vote, because if we don't have a say in who our elected officials are, none of these bills and laws mean anything if we don't step up and make our wishes known and vote for people who support these things, who think like we do, support these issues for criminal justice and police reform.
And also, we do have voter registration forms at KLEK. We keep them in stock. So, if you want to, you can always call us at the station, 870-277-1080, or just message us on any of our social media platforms, and we'll be happy to get you fixed up that way.
Yeah, and you can always, of course, contact me if you want to register to vote. So, but anyway, we need, the NAACP needs you. We want you to join the NAACP. It's only $30 a year. It's been that for I don't know how long, but we need you to register. We need to be able to show a strong front. Numbers matter. If we're going to get things done, we need boots on the ground. And, we're going to be doing training on how to be civically engaged. We're actually going to do training on civic engagement as soon as the national office gives us permission to gather again. Our national office still has not given permission for the branches, for the NAACP branches to meet in person. So until that happens, we'll be Zooming. But as soon as that's done, we're going to have some great opportunities for you to join in and participate and learn, how to help strategically advocate or fight for bills, legislation, even individuals. So all of that is important, and your vote, it begins with you voting, having a say.
Absolutely. And also, what also upcoming events that the chapter will host? I know you said that after you get permission for in-person events, but once that is allowed, what are some things that can be expected coming down the road?
Well, we're hoping to be able to do an actual presentation on this Justice and Policing Act. We want to do that. And also the Crown Act, which deals with our hair. So there is an act also proposed that you can't fire me because you don't like the way my hair is. You can't discriminate against me because you don't like my dreadlocks, or you don't like my natural, you don't like my weave or whatever, So the Crown Act is saying that hair is not a cause for discrimination of any kind. So we're looking at doing a couple of presentations on those in the near future. So
I think the fact that a law like that is even necessary is a sad commentary that we actually have to codify, leave our hair alone.
I, I know, right? I mean, there are kids being sent home from school because the way they wear their hair, you know, young men who wear dreads or braids or whatever, and young women who wear braids or dreads or whatever, are actually being sent home from school, not allowed to play sports because of the way they wear their hair. And so that's just wrong. So we want to do something on that so people will know what their rights are. So those are a couple of things I hope will be coming up in the very near future. We'll actually probably be doing those by Zoom because, as I say, I'm hoping that those will come up in the next month or two. So, yeah.
We're getting ready to go into our next break, and we're still taking your questions and your comments on our Facebook Live feed. We're speaking with Ms. Emma Agnew of the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP. Going to get ready to take our last break on the radio, but the conversation still continues on Facebook Live. You're listening to KLEK on 2.5 FM. So how is the A-State chapter doing? I haven't heard much from them lately, but I stay busy, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I hear that they have a new president. Dominique graduated. So I understand they have a new president whom I haven't talked with. Dr. Williams, Lonnie Williams, works as their advisor. So he's trying to, get that back in shape, back in order, so that they can represent as a university chapter.
Well, absolutely, it's important to have, the students engaged, and really to have everyone engaged, because, like you said, and I've said this too, if you don't like the laws that were recently passed in the legislature, then registering to vote, and voting is how you do something about it. Several of those representatives and senators that voted for the various bills ran unopposed. So, that's just something to think about. And of course, next year, since this is a redistricting year, the entire state house and state senate is going to be up for re-election. And of course, we at KLEK, we will have all of those candidates. Well, we'll invite all of the candidates. Can't promise that they'll all come on, but most of the time they do. So you will have your opportunity to talk to these candidates, ask them questions, air your concerns. So that's another way in which you need to stay involved in the process.
Right. Yeah. And that's why another reason why you have to watch legislation, because these candidates are politicians. They will smooth talk you. They will smile in your face. They will shake your hand and hug your neck. And you will think, oh, he's such a nice guy. But what you need to do is look at his voting record. What kind of legislation does he support? What kind of bills has he supported passing and voted for or voted against? That's how you tell who he or she really is, by looking at that. So don't be fooled by appearance and the politician talking to you trying to win your vote.
Absolutely.
And I'll just leave that at that.
But again, of course, because KLEK, we don't endorse, support, and opposing any candidates.
Right.
But I mean, what you're saying is important, because the record is going to tell the story. So examine the record to determine if their voting record aligns with your values. And with that, we're going to get ready to go back on the radio in just a couple seconds. And we're back on Community Conversations on KLK 102.5 FM with our final segment with Mrs. Emma Agnew, the president of the Craighead chapter of the NAACP. And it is always a pleasure to have her on. So in this last segment, is there anything that we did not cover or that you want to touch back up on?
Well, there's, I just like to follow up on how important these issues are, whether it's popular or not. And, it's time for police reform. And so a lot of you know that, policing was started, this system was based on racial discrimination when it was started. It was started to keep the slaves in check. It was started to catch runaway slaves, et cetera, et cetera. And so it is built on that. And so it is important that it see reform. It needs to be reformed. And so it is so important that you advocate for that when there's an opportunity. Hopefully, we're going to be giving you opportunity in person, but if we don't get released to do that in person, we will be doing it via Zoom to help mobilize for police reform at the federal, state, and national level. The federal level is doing a great job of advocating for police reform. So we join them at the federal level as a local branch, and the state level, we join them at the state level as a local branch. And at the local level, we will be doing what we can, addressing whatever we can. We're going to start having open dialogue with Chief Elliott on some suggestions and things that can be done at the local level to improve. We don't have, by being a smaller city, we don't see a lot. And I'm saying this because I don't hear reports of it. So one thing I always say, if you have reports of being mistreated by the police, that you feel you've been mistreated, then you need to let us know. Even if it's just a feeling that nothing can be done about it at this point, we need to start keeping a record and a file on police incidents. But we're going to continue to try to build relationships so that something that happened with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and numerous others does not happen in Jonesboro. So we need you to help do that. So we're going to ask you to join us as we fight for police reform and criminal justice reform to get some relief for communities. This is for everybody. Police are supposed to serve and protect everybody, not just a few. So please join us and help us initiate reform.
Well, and like I always say, change starts with you. It begins with you. Be the change and which you seek. Yes. And of course, can't stress this enough again. Be a part of the decision-making process. Vote, register to vote, because somebody is going to get in that office. Somebody's going to sit in that seat. Some man, some woman is going to sit in that seat. So why not have a say in who that person is? All right, Ms. Agnew, let them know how they can join and become members of the Craighead County chapter of the NAACP.
Well, there is just a form that you fill out and send us $30. We have a Cash App, or you can send a check to our P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 922, Jonesboro 72403. I will be more than happy to email or mail you the form that you need to complete. It just basically asks for name, address, telephone number, and email is basically the information we need. And that's all. I mean, we don't screen you or require, there are no special requirements to be a member. We just need your we just need your help. And I don't know, do you all still have membership forms, Legacy? I know we dropped some there at one time.
I don't think we have the membership forms. I know we got the voter registration form.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So yeah, just we can get you email. I can even drop it back to you if I need to. I've had my vaccination, so, so
right.
I can
and
drop it back with my mask on. Yeah. But so that it's a simple process, and we do need you. We do need you to join in this work.
Absolutely. And of course, we encourage you to get involved. And there's, I'm a member, and there's certainly a diverse group of people in the group. Good, lively bunch. You can make yourself a new friend as well. Well, Ms. Agnew, as always, we are just so thankful to have you on. And thank you for all of the good work that you continue to do in the community. I remember you were one of the first people that I met on this KLEK journey. You was the one name that always came up in our discussions, and you were working for the city then, but you haven't let retirement slow you down one bit. So we just thank God for you
absolutely.
and for the work that you do in the community. All right, we're gonna get up out of here. This is Community Conversation. Continue to lift Quabila up in prayer for a speedy recovery, and you guys have a great and blessed day. This is the KLEK 102.5 FM.
All right. Thank you, Legacy.
All right, have a good day, Ms. Agnew.
All right, you do the same, dear.
All right.
Bye.